The first thing most people would have thought was that he was about to do something unforgivable. A bearded mountain man stood over a young woman in the middle of a burned summer field, his shadow falling across her like a verdict. She lay with her dress torn open in the grass, knees bruised, breath ragged, eyes open but unfocused. The kind of look that comes when fear has already run out and only waiting is left. If anyone had crested the rise behind him just then, they would have drawn the wrong conclusion. A helpless mail order bride, an empty field outside Cheyenne, Wyoming territory, and a man who didn't belong to any town, any badge, or any rule that could be called in time. The wind whispered through the grass. Insects buzzed low and close. Far off, a lark took flight. Startled by something unseen, the man didn't kneel. He didn't speak. He stood there long enough for the moment to turn dangerous. The woman tried to move. Her fingers scraped dirt and stopped. Her throat worked once, twice, and failed her. Luke Maddox had learned over 46 hard years that rushing was how men made mistakes they could never undo. So he waited. And in that waiting, he saw what others would have missed. Boot print. More than one pair. Heavy soles. The kind worn by men who worked freight and thought nothing of it. A thin scar in the grass where someone had been dragged. And beyond that, faint but clear. A wagon track bending back toward town. They had not panicked. They had planned. They didn't leave her there out of cruelty alone. They left her there to erase a witness. And when they were done, they had left her here to let the sun finish the job. Luke stepped closer, slow enough not to startle her. His shadow crossed her face. She flinched. Then he did the thing no one would have expected. He didn't touch her. He shrugged out of his coat instead and laid it over her shoulders, covering skin that should never have been exposed to this kind of ending. Only then did he crouch, keeping his hands where she could see them. Easy, he said. One word, low, final. Her eyes flickered. A sound came out of her, thin as paper tearing. They said, she whispered, they said I was his bride. Luke's jaw tightened. That sentence had a way of finding men like him. No matter how far they lived from towns, he lifted a canteen and tipped it just enough. Small sips. He waited between them. She drank, turned her face away. Ashamed of needing even that, the July sun pressed down harder. Luke shifted his body so it blocked her from the open land. If they came back, he wanted them to see him first. Luke heard something then, so faint most men would have called it nothing. A creak of leather carried on the wind, not his, not hers. He turned his head just a little, like a man listening for rain. Across the field, far beyond the wagon ruts, a tiny glint flashed and vanished, metal catching sun. A buckle. A gun barrel, a bit of brass. Someone was out there, watching to see if the job was finished. Luke did not wave. He did not call out. He did not reach for his rifle. He simply moved his body so his shadow covered Anna more fully. Like he was claiming the ground around her without claiming her. His voice stayed low. If you can hear me, blink once. Anna blinked. Good, he said. That means you are still here. Luke lifted the canteen again and gave her one more sip. Slow enough to look ordinary from a distance, then he did a small thing that would have looked meaningless to anyone else. He picked up a handful of dry dirt and let it trickle through his fingers. The wind took it sideways. So did the watching eyes. Luke knew which way they would circle if they came in quiet. He knew where they would step if they thought no one could see them. He also knew this. The kind of men who leave a woman to die do not like surprises, and Luke Maddox had just become a surprise they could not ignore. Before we go any further, I need to be clear with you about one thing. The story you are listening to is gathered and retold from many old accounts, with a few details adjusted to bring out its lesson and meaning. The images used in this video are created by AI to help deepen the emotion and atmosphere, not to mislead. If this kind of story is not for you, that is all right. Take care of yourself, rest early, and keep your strength. But if you stay, and if something about this moment already has you leaning closer, leave a comment and let me know. These are the stories worth telling. Luke lifted her then, carefully. She weighed less than she should have, and that worried him more than the bruises. He carried her toward a thin line of cottonwoods near a river bend, where shade at least pretended to exist every step. He listened. The wind stayed steady. The insects didn't scatter. No hooves, no wagon creak. That didn't mean they were safe. It only meant the clock was still ticking. If the men with the wagon came back, they would come back quiet. She stirred against his shoulder. Are you? She started, then stopped. Her voice failed again. No. Luke said just that. When he laid her down in the shade, she finally looked at his face. Really looked. Older than she had first thought. Eyes set deep, steady, measuring, not kind exactly, but controlled. What's your name? He asked. Anna. She said, Annabelle Mercer, same last name. No blood between them, just bad luck. He nodded once, fixing it in his mind like a landmark. I'm Luke, she swallowed. They took everything, she said. My trunk, my papers, my money. Luke glanced back toward the field, toward the bend in the wagon tracks. Not everything, he said. He reached into the torn lining near her waist and drew out a folded scrap she had not even remembered hiding. They took her trunk, but they didn't think to check the lining. A piece of paper creased and dirty, stamped with ink that meant nothing to her and everything to him. Union Pacific. Rawlins. She watched his face change. They said it was nothing. She whispered, just papers. Luke folded it and slipped it into his vest. Men do not leave women to die over nothing, he said. The wind shifted. Carrion birds circled farther off. Disappointed, Luke stood and scanned the land again. If they were smart, they would come back at sundown, just to be sure. He looked down at Anna. That means we move now. He helped her sit. Slow, deliberate. As he settled her against the cottonwood, one thought settled hard in his chest. This was not just a rescue. This was a choice, out here. Saving one life often meant inviting another kind of trouble to follow you home. So here's the question I want you to carry forward. When a mountain man finds a mail order bride left to die in an empty field, is he only doing what any decent man should, or has he just stepped into a fight that was meant to stay buried? And what happens when the men who left her there realize she's still breathing? Luke didn't wait for the sun to dip. Waiting was what men did when they wanted to be found. He tightened the cinch, lifted Anna with care, and set her sideways on the saddle so the movement would not tear what little strength she had left. She bit down once, then nodded. That was all the permission he needed. They moved east first, slow and steady, keeping the cottonwoods between them and the open field. Luke didn't look back right away. Looking back taught fear where you were going. The land spoke if you knew how to listen. Grass bent the wrong way, dust that had not settled, the faint smell of leather and sweat that didn't belong to either of them. Luke counted time in breaths, in the distance between water and shade, in how long it would take a man with a wagon to realize his problem had not solved itself. Anna leaned against him, her head light against his shoulder. I didn't run, she said, voice thin but steadier now. I asked a question. Luke almost smiled. Almost. That was usually how it started. She told it plain, without drama. She had arrived in Cheyenne with a name and a promise. A room had been waiting, so had smiles that didn't last. At the freight office, she had seen papers being swapped, marks changed, numbers that didn't match what was being loaded. She had said it out loud, just once. After that, the tone changed. After that, the field. Luke listened without stopping her, but his eyes never left the land ahead. Men who moved freight didn't like witnesses. Men who paid off others liked them even less. They reached a low draw where the wind ran cooler. Luke slid down first, then helped Anna off the saddle. He gave her water, a bite of dried meat. You will walk some, he said. Not far, just enough to keep your blood moving. She nodded again. They moved on. By the time the sun started to tilt, Luke had made up his mind. They were not going back to Cheyenne. Not tonight. Not ever. Towns were useful, but only when you knew who owned them. Right now, Cheyenne belonged to someone else. They cut south, angling toward the rail line without touching it. Close enough to follow. Far enough not to be seen. That was when Luke heard it. Hooves, not close, not far, Just enough to matter. He slowed, counted, 2, maybe 3. Anna felt it too. Her hand tightened on the saddle. They found us, she said. Luke shook his head. Not yet. They are checking. He guided them into a shallow wash and waited. The sound passed, moved on. Luke exhaled. If those men had been sure, they would not have ridden past. That meant someone was still guessing. They reached Luke's cabin at last, tucked against a stand of scrub and rock that did a good job of pretending to be nothing at all. It was not much. One room, a stove, a bed that had known better days. It was enough. Luke cleaned her wounds with water and patience. No speeches, no promises. When he was done, he stepped back. You will live, he said. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since the field, she slept. Luke did not. He sat outside with his rifle across his knees and watched the stars come out, one by one. This was the part men forgot about when they talked themselves into helping. The waiting. Near midnight, he heard it. A wagon, far off, moving slow. He didn't move. If they were smart, they would check the field first, then the river, then the road. The wagon passed without turning. Luke smiled once, thin and humorless. They had chosen wrong. Morning came hot and early. Anna was awake when he came in. She tried to stand and failed. Easy, Luke said. She laughed, soft and surprised. You say that a lot. It saves time, he replied. They ate. They planned. Luke laid it out simple. There was a freight office name on that paper. Rawlins. That meant a rail handoff. That meant men who thought themselves untouchable. Anna listened, eyes clear now. I can point him out. She said, the one who smiled when it happened. Luke nodded. That helps. They left the cabin before noon, moving light. By the time they reached the outskirts of Cheyenne again, Luke felt it. Eyes. Too many. At the store, a man lingered too long. At the water trough, another looked away too fast. And then there was Deputy Nolan Briggs. He tipped his hat like they were old friends. You seen anything strange out your way? Luke, he asked. Luke didn't stop walking. Plenty strange. He said, none of it new. Briggs smiled. Careful out there, he said. Summer's hard on folks. Luke felt Anna stiffen beside him. That was enough. They didn't stay. They rode until the land thinned and the sound of town fell away. Anna let out a breath she'd been holding since morning. He knew. She said. Luke nodded. He knows something. That's worse. They camped that night where the ground dipped and the wind didn't carry sound far. Luke built a small fire and kept it low. Anna watched him for a long moment. You could have ridden on, she said. Left me. Luke shrugged. Could have. She waited. Why didn't you? Luke poked the fire once. Because someone else already did. That was the closest he came to saying more. By morning, the plan was set. They would go to Rawlins, not to hide, to stand where people watched. Sometimes the safest place was not the quiet one. Before we go on, let me say this. If you are enjoying the way this story is unfolding, take a second and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep these old stories alive. And while you listen, pour yourself a cup of tea or coffee. Settle in and tell me this. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you listening from? Because what Luke and Anna were walking into next was the kind of place where secrets didn't stay buried for long. They reached the edge of Rawlins by late afternoon, when the sun still had teeth but the wind carried a little mercy. Luke didn't ride straight in. Men who wanted trouble did that. Men who wanted answers took the long way. He circled wide, kept the rail line on his left, and watched how the town moved before letting it see him. Rawlins was busy the way rail towns always were. Wheels turning, voices raised over freight counts, men waiting on platforms with nothing to do but watch who came and went. Anna stayed quiet, and Luke noticed that too. Shock had burned off. Fear had settled into something steadier. Attention, that mattered. Luke found a place for the horse first. A livery that smelled honest enough and didn't ask questions that cost extra. He paid in coin, not favors, and that bought a little silence. They walked the rest. Luke kept his pace easy. He didn't hide Anna. He didn't put her out front either. Visible, not advertised. At the far end of the freight yard, Luke saw the sign he'd been looking for. Mercer Freight and Storage, painted neat, kept clean. The kind of place that wanted to look boring. Luke didn't stop there. Not yet. They crossed the street and stepped into a small diner that fed men who worked with their hands and didn't care much who else sat nearby. Luke chose a table where he could see the door and the window. At the same time, they ate. Simple food. Hot coffee. Anna's hands shook once, then steadied. That was when Luke knew she would hold. Across the room, a man looked over too often, not staring, measuring. Luke finished his coffee and stood. "We walk," he said. They stepped back outside, turned once, then doubled back the way they had come. The man followed. Luke didn't rush. He let it happen. At the corner, Luke stopped and bent as if to fix his boot. The man walked into his shadow. "Lost something, friend?" Luke said. The man froze. "Just looking," he said. Luke straightened. "Then you found the wrong thing." The man took a step back. That was enough. They moved on. By the time they reached the edge of the freight yard again, Luke was certain Mercer knew. And Mercer had people watching. They didn't go in through the front. Luke led Anna along the fence line to a spot where workers came and went too often to notice one more pair of boots. Crates stood stacked. Ledgers were passed hand to hand. This was where Anna slowed. Her breath caught. "That's him," she said. Luke didn't ask who. He saw the man step out of the office. Clean vest, well-fed, smiling at a clerk like nothing in the world was wrong. Clyde Mercer. Luke felt the shape of it settle. This was not a thug. This was a man who hired them. They didn't confront him. Not today. Luke watched the patterns instead. Who Mercer spoke to. Who carried papers for him. Which crate got extra attention. Anna stayed close, eyes sharp. She pointed once. "That mark," she said. "That stamp was not there before." Luke nodded. Good. They left before sunset, just as they had arrived. Quiet, unremarkable. That night, they took a room near the edge of town. Luke paid for 2 beds. No explanations. He sat by the window while Anna rested. He thought through it slow. Mercer would not act alone. Men like him never did. If Rollins was the handoff, then tomorrow would be loud. Morning brought heat and noise. Luke sent Anna out early, not to hide, but to be seen. He gave her a task. Walk the street. Listen, see who looks twice. Luke went the other way. He found the rail clerk who counted cars and drank too much coffee. Asked a few questions that sounded harmless. By noon, Luke had what he needed. A shipment was moving that night. Papers would change hands. Mistakes would be buried. Luke met Anna near the livery. They compared notes. Men were watching her now. Not hiding it. That meant Mercer was nervous. Good. They waited. Late afternoon. Mercer stepped out again. This time, he saw Anna. His smile held for half a second too long. He walked toward them. Luke stepped between. "Afternoon," Mercer said. Friendly, smooth. Luke nodded. "Fine day to count boxes," he said. Mercer laughed. "Always is." Mercer's eyes flicked to Anna. "You look tired, Mitt," he said. Anna didn't answer. Luke did. "She's had a long road." Mercer studied Luke. "You pass through often?" he asked. "Only when I have to." Luke said. Mercer smiled wider. "Maybe you should come by the office later. We can talk business." Luke shook his head. "No business worth that much talking." Mercer's smile faded. "Careful," he said. Luke leaned in just enough. "So are we." Mercer stepped back. That night, Luke didn't sleep. Neither did Anna. They watched the yard from a distance. Lanterns moved. Voices carried. And then Luke saw it. A crate marked wrong. A stamp Anna had noticed earlier. That was the one. Luke touched Anna's arm. "When this breaks," he said. "It breaks fast." She nodded. "I am ready." Luke believed her. They moved closer, close enough to hear names, close enough to see fear begin to creep into Mercer's men. Because something else was happening. A deputy stepped into the light. Nolan Briggs. Anna felt it before Luke did. Her breath stopped. "He followed us," she said. Luke watched Briggs to speak to Mercer, saw Mercer's shoulders loosen. That told Luke everything. The law was here, and it was not for justice. Luke set his jaw. This had just turned. He looked at Anna. "If I tell you to speak, you speak loud." She swallowed. If I tell you to move, you move now. She nodded. The lantern light shifted again. A whistle blew down the line. The train was coming. Luke felt the moment close around them, because once those papers moved, they would be ghosts, and once Briggs decided how this ended, someone would not be walking out of Rawlins. Here's the thing to hold on to as we go on. Luke Maddox didn't come to Rawlins looking for a fight, but he was about to learn that sometimes the only way to save the truth is to make sure it cannot be ignored. And the next choice he made would put his name on a list that didn't forgive mistakes. The train didn't arrive quietly. Its whistle cut through Rawlins like a blade, long and sharp, telling every man with business to finish it fast. Lanterns shifted, boots moved quicker. Voices dropped. Luke watched the yard tighten. This was the moment Mercer had been waiting for. Paper changed hands best when iron wheels were close enough to drown out questions. Luke stayed still. Standing out was not how you won this kind of fight. Anna stood a few steps behind him, close enough to hear his breath. When I touch my hat, Luke said, you move to the light. She nodded once. That was all. Across the yard. Clyde Mercer stepped into the glow of a hanging lantern, papers tucked neat under his arm like they were nothing more than grocery lists. Deputy Nolan Briggs walked beside him, relaxed, hand near his belt, eyes calm. Too calm. Briggs spoke first to a rail clerk, then laughed. Mercer laughed with him. Men laughed when they thought they were safe. Luke felt the math change. If Mercer handed those papers over with Briggs standing there, then anything Anna said afterward would sound like a story told too late. And stories told too late didn't matter. Luke moved, not fast, just enough. He crossed the yard like he belonged there. Stopping at a crate near the tracks, he rested a hand on it, casual. The stamp Anna had pointed out was right where it should not have been. Mercer noticed him then. The smile returned, thinner now. You again, Mercer said. You have a habit of being where you do not belong. Luke met his eyes. Seems like the kind of place that grows habit, he said. Mercer looked past him. Is she with you? He asked. Luke didn't turn. She's not for sale, he said. Mercer laughed once, sharp. Everyone is something, he said. That was when Briggs stepped closer. This is private business. Luke, he said, you should walk away. Luke finally looked at him. Funny thing about private business, he said. It hates daylight. Briggs' eyes flicked to the workers nearby. Careful, he said. Luke touched his hat. Anna moved. She stepped into the open, into the lantern light, where men could see her face and the marks that had not yet faded. She raised her voice, steady and clear. That man, she said, pointing at Mercer, is not my husband. He's the one who had me dragged into a field and left to die. The yard stilled, not silent, but listening. Mercer turned toward her too fast. That is a lie, he said. She's confused. Anna didn't shout. She didn't cry. She reached into her coat and held up the scrap Luke had shown her earlier. The one Mercer thought was gone. This stamp was changed, she said. I watched you do it. A murmur rippled. Briggs stepped forward. Enough, he said. Luke moved with him. Now, Luke said. Briggs' hand dropped to his belt. Luke kicked the crate. Ledgers spilled, papers fluttered. Ink and names and numbers everywhere. Workers stepped back, eyes bent down. Mercer swore. Briggs drew. Luke was already moving. He struck Briggs' wrist hard, clean. The gun hit the dirt. Everything went loud. Mercer tried to run. Anna didn't move. Luke blocked Mercer's path. You made one mistake, Luke said. Mercer spat. Which one? He asked. You thought no one would watch her, Luke said. Briggs lunged. Luke turned and hit him again, sending him down into the dirt where law didn't help much. The whistle blew again. Closer now. Someone shouted for a marshal. Mercer froze. The sound was wrong. Not local. Not friendly. Riders appeared at the far end of the yard, coats dark, posture different. Federal. Railmen hated paper fraud because it cost them money. Luke felt the yard breathe again. Briggs sat up, eyes wide. Mercer backed away. Too late. The riders dismounted. Boots steady, faces unreadable. One of them stepped forward. We have questions, he said. Mercer opened his mouth. The rider held up a hand. Save it. Luke stepped back. Anna stood where she was, shoulders straight. The papers were gathered. Names read. Briggs didn't meet anyone's eyes. Mercer didn't smile anymore. As the train rolled in, metal screaming against metal, Luke felt the weight shift. This was not over. Men like Mercer didn't disappear clean. They bled slow. The rider turned to Luke. "You did the right thing," he said. Luke shrugged. "Did what I could see." The rider nodded. "That is usually enough." They took Mercer. They took Briggs. The yard went back to work like nothing had happened. Anna exhaled. Luke looked at her. "You did good," he said. She nodded. "I am not done," she said. Luke believed her. They walked away before anyone could decide to remember too much. The night settled back in. Luke felt the ache in his hands. The kind that came after a line had been crossed for good. As they reached the edge of town, Anna spoke. "He will come back," she said. "The one who owns him." Luke didn't argue. Men like Mercer answered to someone, and that someone would not like daylight. Luke looked toward the dark beyond Rawlins. "Then we will be ready," he said, because the next move would not be quiet, and it would not wait. Rawlins didn't celebrate what happened in the yard. It never did. It never. By morning, the freight yard looked the same as it always had. Men counted crates, horses shifted, coffee steamed. Only the quiet was different. Luke felt it as soon as he stepped outside. The quiet was watching. He and Anna didn't linger. They took a short breakfast, paid clean, and moved before the town decided what story it wanted to tell itself. Towns like simple stories. This one was not. They rode out with the sun still low, following the rail line just far enough to stay oriented, not close enough to be remembered. Luke set a steady pace, not fast, not slow. Running drew eyes. So did fear. Anna rode better today. Her posture was straighter, her hand steadier. Shock had finished with her. Now came the part where choices mattered. They camped before noon in a cut of land where sound died easy. Luke watered the horse and checked tack out of habit. Anna watched him for a long moment. "They will not let this go," she said. Luke nodded. "No," he said. "They will not." He didn't dress it up. Men who lost money and names in public didn't shrug and move on. They sent others. Luke laid it out plain. Mercer had been a middle rung, the kind that took risks because someone else promised to catch him if he fell, that someone would not like surprises. Anna listened. "Who?" she asked. Luke shook his head. "It doesn't matter yet," he said. "What matters is where." He tapped the rail line with his boot. "This leads both ways," Anna understood. If the trouble didn't come from Rawlins, it would come along the track. They broke camp and moved again. By mid-afternoon, Luke noticed the first sign, a rider, far back, keeping distance, too far to greet, too close to ignore. Luke didn't change pace. He counted time and fence posts. The rider fell back. Another appeared farther ahead, crossing the land at an angle. Luke exhaled. They had switched from guessing to hunting. They reached a narrow stretch where the land rose on one side and dropped on the other. Luke slowed. Anna didn't ask why. Luke dismounted and led the horse halfway through. The first rider appeared behind them, this time closer. Luke turned. "Afternoon," he called. The rider stopped. He was young, too clean. "Looking for work," the rider said. Luke nodded. "So is everyone." The rider smiled. "Word travels fast on the rail," he said. Luke felt the truth of that. He guided the horse forward again. The rider didn't follow. Instead, he turned back the way he came. Luke didn't relax. That was not a warning. That was a count. They camped that night farther from the line, using the land to break sight and sound. Luke set no fire. Anna slept in short stretches. Luke stayed awake. Near dawn, he heard it. Hooves, more than one. He didn't move. When the sound passed without stopping, Luke knew something worse. They were not here for him yet. They were looking for where he would be tomorrow. By morning, Anna saw it too. "They are pushing us," she said. Luke nodded toward something. They rode hard until the sun climbed, then cut west, away from the rail. That was when Luke made the next decision. They would go to his cabin, not to hide, to choose ground. The cabin sat where land narrowed and sight lines were honest. It was not comfortable. It was defensible. They arrived before noon. Luke unloaded, checked the perimeter, and set things where they belonged. This was a man preparing, not panicking. Anna watched. "You have done this before," she said. Luke paused. "Once," he said. "That was all." They ate in silence. Then Anna spoke. "They thought I was nothing," she said. "Something to move and throw away." Luke met her eyes. They were wrong. She held his gaze. "So were you." "At first," she said. Luke almost smiled. "Fair." By mid-afternoon, the visitors came. 2 men, both riding easy, both armed. They stopped short of the cabin. One called out, "We're looking for a woman," he said. Luke stepped into the open. "You found a man instead," he said. The riders exchanged looks, just questions. One said, Luke shook his head. Wrong place. The riders didn't press. They turned and rode off. Anna let out a breath. That was not the worst of it. Luke said, "No." That night, Luke sent a message, not by wire, by rider, an old debt, an older name. He didn't explain it to Anna. He didn't need to. By the time the rider left, Luke knew the clock had changed. They were no longer reacting. They were drawing attention on purpose. Morning came with heat and dust. Anna stood on the porch and looked out. "I could leave," she said. "Now." Luke shook his head. "You could," he said, "but they would follow you harder." She nodded. "Then I stay." Luke accepted it that afternoon. The sound came again. This time, it didn't pass. 3 riders, then 4. They stopped within sight. The lead man dismounted. He wore a vest too nice for the road. His name was Pierce Calder, and Clyde Mercer answered to him. "We need to talk," he said. Luke stepped forward. "You missed your chance," he said. The man smiled. "You're not the one I'm here for," he said. Anna stepped beside Luke. "I am," she said. The man looked at her. "There you are," he said. Luke felt the line snap tight. He set his feet. The man raised a hand. "Not today," he said. "Soon." They rode off. Anna felt the fear rise again. Luke didn't soften it. "That was the owner," he said. "The one Mercer answered to." Anna swallowed. "What happens now?" Luke looked at the land. "Now," he said, "we stop running. Because the next time those men came back, they would not be counting. They would be collecting, and Luke Maddox was about to make sure the price went both ways. Luke didn't waste the morning. Men who planned to stand their ground did not. He rose before the light burned the edges of the land, checked the horse, and walked the perimeter like he was reading a map only he could see. Every rock had a use. Every narrow pass told a story. Anna watched from the porch, wrapped in a blanket, coffee cooling in her hands. "You are setting traps," she said. Luke nodded. Ground teaches faster than words. He showed her what to notice, where sound carried, where it died, how a man's shadow betrayed him before his boots ever did. Anna listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't argue. That told Luke more than questions ever could. By mid-morning, Luke had made another choice. They would not wait at the cabin. Waiting was how men got surrounded. They packed light and moved into the broken ground east of the ridge, where scrub and rock forced riders to slow and separate. It was not comfortable. It was honest. They set up where the land narrowed and sight lines crossed. Luke showed Anna where to stand if things went bad. Not to fight, to be seen. That was her role now. By noon, the heat came on hard. Luke felt it in his joints, old aches waking up. Anna felt it too, but neither of them complained. The first sign came shortly after. Dust, high, wide. Luke counted. 4 riders. Same number as yesterday, closer this time. Luke didn't hide. He stepped into the open and waited. The riders spread without thinking. That was their mistake. Luke fired once, not at them. At the ground in front of the lead horse. The horse reared. The riders pulled up. The lead man raised a hand. Easy. He called. Luke didn't answer. He shifted his stance just enough to show he had time. The riders dismounted. One step forward. "We only want the woman," he said. Luke let the silence stretch. "You do not want her." Luke said, "You want quiet." The man smiled. "Same thing." Luke shook his head. No. The man's smile faded. You're standing in the way of business, he said. Luke met his eyes. You brought business to the wrong ground. The riders hesitated. They were not paid to die in places with no witnesses. They mounted again. Not today. The lead man said. Luke nodded. Not today. They rode off. Anna let out a breath she had been holding. That was not the end. She said. Luke agreed. No. By evening, Luke knew the pattern. The owner was testing him. Testing her. Seeing where fear would show. That night, Luke did something he had not done in years. He wrote, not a letter, a name, a place. He handed it to Anna. If something happens to me, he said, this goes to Rollins. She took it without asking what it was. That told Luke everything. Morning came with birds and the wrong kind of quiet. No dust, no riders. Luke frowned. This was not relief. This was space. By noon, Anna noticed it too. They stopped. She said, Luke listened. Yes. Which meant they were doing something else. They moved back toward the rail line, slow and careful. Halfway there, Luke saw it. Smoke, thin, deliberate. A signal. Luke's jaw set. They are calling someone, he said. Anna looked at him. Who? Luke didn't answer. They reached a rise that gave them a view of the line below. Men were unloading crates from one wagon stood apart. Guarded. Luke felt the truth click into place. They are not coming for us, he said. They are moving something. Anna understood. The papers. Luke nodded. If those papers vanished, Rollins would forget everything. They moved fast now. Not running. Purpose. They closed the distance using the land. Closer. Closer. Then Luke heard it. Another group of riders. Behind them. They had been herded. Luke stopped. Anna stopped with him. He looked at her. This is the part where you trust me. She nodded. Always. Luke took her hand and moved her to the open. When I say speak, he said, you do not stop. She swallowed. Luke turned and walked toward the wagon. The men guarding it stiffened. What do you want? One called. Luke raised his voice. You already know, he said. The riders behind them crested the rise. The men at the wagon turned. Confusion rippled. Anna stepped forward. She spoke. Loud. Clear. That man, she said, pointing at the wagon boss, works for the one who left me to die. Heads turned. Someone laughed. Someone did not. Luke kicked the wagon brake. Crates shifted. Papers slid. A ledger fell open. Names, numbers, the wrong ones. That was enough. Shouts broke out. The riders behind them charged. Luke moved. Fast now. He struck the wagon boss, knocked him down, and kicked the ledger into the open. Men crowded. Someone yelled for a marshal. The sound of hooves changed. Not hired men. Authority. That old debt Luke called in was finally riding this way. The riders slowed. The wagon boss scrambled. Too late. Anna didn't stop speaking. She told it once, plain. Who? Where? What was done to her? Men listened. They always did when the truth came out loud enough. By the time the dust settled, the wagon was surrounded. The riders were gone. Luke leaned on the wheel, breathing hard. Anna stood beside him. You did that, he said. She shook her head. We did. Luke believed her. But as the first lawman stepped into the circle, Luke felt it. This was not the end, because the owner would not lose quietly, and the next move would not be about papers. It would be about blood. Luke looked at Anna, and for the first time since the field, he wondered if he could keep her alive through what was coming next. The lawmen didn't rush it. They never did when something felt bigger than a single crime. Luke stood back while questions were asked and names were written. He watched who spoke first and who stayed quiet. That told him more than answers. Anna gave her account once. Plain, straight, no shaking this time. Men listened. Some looked away. Some did not. The ledger was wrapped and carried off. So were two of the guard. The rest were told to wait. Waiting was not a kindness. By the time the sun slid low, word had already moved along the rail. Not the truth. A version. Versions were dangerous. Luke felt it in the way men glanced and measured. in the way a few riders left town too fast. He didn't relax. He never did after the noise stopped. That night, they were offered rooms. Luke declined. He chose a spot outside town where the land dipped and sound had to work to reach you. They made a small fire and kept it honest. Anna sat close, knees drawn in. "They will come," she said. Luke nodded. Yes. Not because they were angry, because they were embarrassed. Embarrassment made men reckless. Luke checked his rifle and set it down. Then he did something Anna didn't expect. He sat, not watching the dark, watching her. "You need to understand something," he said. She waited. "If you walk away tomorrow," he said, "you might make it. If you stay, you will be hunted for a while." Anna didn't answer right away. "I have been hunted already," she said. "At least now I know why." Luke almost smiled. Fair enough. Morning came with heat and dust, and the lawmen returned early. One of them spoke quiet to Luke. "The owner wants a meeting," he said. Luke didn't ask who, where. He asked, "Outside town." That was expected. Luke told Anna. She shook her head. "No," she said. Luke frowned. "It is not a request," he said. "Then it is not your decision alone," she said. Luke studied her. This was not fear talking. This was resolve. "All right," he said, "but you stand where I can see you." They rode out under a sky too clean for what was coming. The place was a shallow basin with room enough to pretend no one was listening. 3 riders waited. The man in the vest dismounted first. He was older than Luke had expected. Calm, careful. That surprised Luke. "You caused trouble," the man said. Luke nodded. "You brought it with you?" The man smiled. "You embarrass good people," he said. Luke shrugged. "They embarrassed themselves." The man's eyes moved to Anna. She took a step forward. "I am not for sale," she said. The man sighed. "This is not about you," he said. Anna held his gaze. "It started with me." She said. Luke felt the shift. The man had not expected that. He turned back to Luke. "You are a problem," he said. Luke met him square. "You are a habit," Luke said. "Habits get broken." The man's smile faded. He raised a hand. "We can make this stop," he said. Luke waited. "Leave the territory," the man said. "Both of you. By tomorrow." Luke shook his head. "No." The man's jaw tightened. "You think the law will save you?" he said. Luke shook his head again. "No." The man laughed softly. "Then you are not thinking straight." Luke glanced at Anna, then back. "We are thinking clearly," he said. The man mounted. "Last chance," he said. Luke stepped forward 1 pace. "You already had it." The riders turned and left. Anna let out a breath. "That went better than I thought," she said. Luke didn't agree. "No," he said. "That was a promise." They rode back toward town. Halfway there, Luke heard it. A shot. Not close. A signal. Luke pushed the horse harder. They crested a rise and saw smoke from the direction of the cabin. Luke's jaw set. They didn't stop. They rode until the horse screamed and the land blurred. By the time they reached the cabin, it was over. The door hung open. The place was torn. Nothing burned. That was deliberate. A message. Anna stepped inside. Her breath caught. "They didn't take much," she said. Luke nodded. "They took time." That was worse. On the table lay a single item. A button. Not Luke's. The vest man's. Anna picked it up. "They want us to follow," she said. Luke took the button. Yes. He sat on the step and thought. Then he stood. "All right," he said. "Where?" Anna looked at the rail line. Luke nodded. "There is one place they will feel safe," he said. "One place they think they can end this." Anna met his eyes. "Then we go there," she said. Luke believed her. They packed what mattered, left the rest. As they rode out, Luke felt the weight of the choice settle. This was no longer about clearing a name. It was about drawing a line where everyone could see it. And when they crossed it, there would be no pretending. The sun dipped, the rail line stretched ahead. Luke tightened the reins, because the next place they were headed would not forgive hesitation, and someone was already waiting for them there. They rode through the night, trading sleep for distance. They rode into the Laramie yards just before dusk, when the light flattened everything and made distances lie. The rail junction sat wide and open, all iron and dust, the kind of place men believed would protect them simply by being busy. Engines hissed, workers shouted count, lanterns came on early. Luke slowed the horse a mile out and studied the lay of it. This was where the owner would feel safe. Plenty of witnesses, plenty of noise, plenty of ways to make a problem disappear inside the crowd. Anna saw it too. "He will try to end it here," she said. Luke nodded, "'cause he thinks the place will do the work for him." They didn't enter together. Luke tied the horse where a man might leave it if he planned to come back. Anna walked first, steady, visible, not hiding the way fear asked her to. Luke followed at a distance, moving with the rhythm of men who worked for wages and kept their eyes down. The junction smelled of hot metal and oil. It sounded like argument in motion, perfect cover. Luke watched the faces. Most were tired, some were curious, a few were waiting. He spotted the owner near the loading office, vest buttoned, hat clean, posture calm. He looked like a man who had already decided how the night would end. Two men stood with him, hands easy, eyes hard. Luke didn't go to them. Not yet. He drifted to the far side, near the freight scale, where ledgers passed hands and stamps made things official. Anna reached the center of the space and stopped. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She waited. The owner saw her. His mouth tightened. He moved first. "Miss," he said. "Friendly enough for anyone watching. You were lost." Anna shook her head. "No," she said. "I was left." A few heads turned. The owner smiled wider. "This is not the place for stories," he said. Anna lifted her chin. "It is the place for truth," she said. Luke stepped closer, not rushing, not hiding. The owner noticed him now. "Ah," he said. "You again?" Luke met his eyes. "Still standing," Luke said. The owner sighed. "This has gone far enough," he said. "You have been heard. Now it ends." He nodded to one of his men. That man moved toward Anna. Luke moved at the same time. He didn't draw. He blocked. The man bumped him and swore. That was enough. Voices rose. Workers stopped counting. The owner raised his voice. "This woman is disturbed," he said. "She needs to be taken away." Anna spoke louder. "I was brought here as a mail-order bride," she said. "I saw freight papers changed. I asked a question. They dragged me into a field and left me to die." Silence spread like oil. Not complete, but listening. The owner laughed once. "Stories," he said. Luke reached into his vest and pulled the folded ledger page free. "Then explain this," he said. He held it up. Stamps, numbers, the wrong ones. A clerk near the scale stiffened. "That stamp was retired," the clerk said. The owner turned. "Enough," he said. "Too late." A murmur ran. Luke stepped forward another pace. "You think noise hides truth," he said. "It does not. It carries it." The owner's smile vanished. He gave a small signal. The second man moved behind Luke. Anna saw it. She didn't scream. She pointed. "That one," she said. He was there. Men looked. The second man froze. Luke felt the shift. Fear had changed sides. The owner lunged for the ledger. Luke pulled it back at the owner swung. Luke took it on the shoulder and answered once, clean, hard. The owner stumbled. Shouts broke loose. Someone ran. Someone yelled for law. A whistle blew. The wrong one. Luke saw riders at the edge of the junction. Not railmen, not deputies. Hired. The owner smiled again. "You should have left," he said. Luke moved. Fast now. He grabbed the scale handle and shoved. Iron screeched. Crates toppled. Paper flew. Men scattered. Anna didn't move. She kept speaking. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said. "You tried to bury me." The owner reached for his gun. Luke kicked it away. The hired riders pushed in. Luke felt a blow glance his ribs. He stayed on his feet. Another blow came. He ducked. The ledger slid across the dirt. Anna ran to it and picked it up. She held it high. "This is what you want hidden," she said. "Look at it." Men surged. Someone grabbed a rider. Another rider backed off. Authority arrived at last, late but loud, guns drawn. "Stop." A voice shouted. The owner froze. The hired men stopped. Luke stepped back, breathing hard. The ledger changed hands. Questions flew. Names were called. The owner spoke. Fast now. Angry. Lies. He said. Anna stood straight. "Ask the field," she said. "Ask the tracks." The lawman looked at Luke. Luke nodded toward the ledger. "Start there," he said. The lawman did. The owner sagged. Not much, but enough. As the junction settled, Luke felt the ache spread, and he leaned against a post. Anna came to him. "You were bleeding," she said. Luke shrugged. "Still standing." They took the owner away, not gently. The hired men vanished into the crowd. The junction breathed again. Luke watched the iron calm. He knew better. This was not finished. Anna knew it too. She looked past the lights, toward the dark beyond the rail. "He will not stop," she said. Luke shook his head. "No." "But he is smaller now." They walked away together. Slow, deliberate. The ledger went with the law. The story went with the people. Luke felt the weight of it lift and settle at the same time, because tonight had drawn a line in iron and noise. And tomorrow would decide who dared step over it. As they reached the edge of the light, Luke heard it, a single shot, far off. Not meant to hit. Meant to warn. Luke stopped. Anna stopped with him. That was the signal. Luke said, the owner had failed. Now the owner's owner would answer. And the next morning would not begin with words. It would begin with a choice neither of them could step away from. Morning came softer than anyone expected. No gunfire, no shouting. Just the steady sound of iron cooling and men going back to work, because that's what people do when the world does not end the way they feared it might. Luke woke with pain in his ribs and dust still in his hair. He took that as proof he was alive. Anna sat near the window, light falling across her face in a way that made her look older and steadier than the girl left in the field days before. She was not waiting anymore. She was choosing. They didn't speak right away. Some moments earned silence. The owner was gone, taken somewhere with walls and questions and time that didn't move in his favor. The papers were gone too. That mattered more than the man. When truth survives long enough to be written down, it stops being fragile. Luke stood and tested his weight. "Still standing," he said. Anna smiled. "You always say that," she said. Luke shrugged. "It keeps being true." They left town that morning without ceremony. No one stopped them. No one needed to. The rail line stretched behind them, quiet now, like it had never carried secrets at all. The land opened again. Luke felt something he had not expected. Relief. Not the kind that makes a man lie, the kind that lets him sleep. They rode until the noise of the junction faded, then farther still, until the only sound left was wind and leather and the steady work of the horse. Anna broke the quiet. "What happens now?" she asked. Luke thought about it. He didn't rush. "Now," he said, "you live." She considered that. "And you?" she asked. Luke looked ahead. Same. They reached the cabin by afternoon. It stood the way it always had. Scarred, solid. Luke unpacked what little they carried. Anna stepped onto the porch and breathed in. "I thought being alive would feel louder," she said. Luke smiled. "It gets quieter," he said. "That is how you know it is real." Days passed, then weeks. The world didn't end. It adjusted. Word traveled the way it always does. Bent. Incomplete. Some said Luke was reckless. Some said he was lucky. A few said he had been right. Luke didn't care which story won. Anna healed in small ways that mattered. She learned the land, learned how to read clouds and shade and when to stop pushing. She learned how to say no without apology. Luke watched and said little. That was his way. One evening, as the sun went down slow and kind, Anna sat beside him with a cup of coffee gone thin. "I stayed," she said. Luke nodded. "You did." "Not because I had nowhere else to go," she said. Luke looked at her then. "Good," he said, because staying out of fear only looks like choice. She smiled at that. Love didn't arrive like a story would promise. It showed up because they matched in the only way that mattered. They chose the same hard road for the same honest reasons. It didn't announce itself. It showed up as work shared, as quiet trust, as two people choosing the same morning without asking for guarantees. I want to pause here for a moment and speak to you directly because stories like this have a way of reaching past the screen. I have thought a lot about why this one stayed with me. It is not about the violence. It is not about the West or the railroads or the men who thought they could bury the truth. It is about the moment Luke didn't ride past. And it is about the moment Anna decided she would speak, even when her voice shook. I know what it is like to be tired enough to look away. I know how easy it is to say someone else will handle it. Most of us do not wake up wanting to be brave. We wake up wanting the day to be manageable. But life does not always ask for what we want. Sometimes it places a choice in our path and asks who we are willing to be when no one is keeping score. Luke didn't save the world. He didn't become a hero carved in stone. He did something smaller and harder. He stood still when it would have been easier to keep moving. Anna didn't become strong overnight. She became honest with herself first. There's a lesson there worth carrying. Survival is not the same as living. Silence is not the same as peace. And comfort is not the same as safety. If you are listening to this and thinking about your own life, I want to ask you something simple. Where have you been riding past something because you told yourself it was not your place? Who have you been quiet for? And what would change if you stopped? Another lesson is this. Doing the right thing does not always reward you right away. Sometimes it costs you sleep. Sometimes it costs you friends. Sometimes it costs you the version of yourself that believed staying small was safer. But in the long run, it gives you something better. It gives you a life you can stand inside without flinching. Luke and Anna didn't build a perfect ending. They built a good one made of mornings and work and choice, and that is something many of us could use more of. Before we finish, I want to thank you for staying with this story all the way to the end. If it gave you something to think about, something to feel, or even something to question, I would appreciate it if you tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep these kinds of stories alive and reaching the people who might need them. And while you sit there, maybe with a cup of tea or coffee in your hand, take a moment and tell me this. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you listening from? I read those comments more than you might think, because stories do not really end when the words stop. They end when we decide what to do with them. Luke and Anna chose to stay present. They chose to stop running. The question is not whether life will place something difficult in your path. It will. The question is whether you will recognize the moment when it arrives, and whether you will have the courage to stop long enough to choose who you want to be when it does. That choice is still yours. As long as you're breathing, it always is.